Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Speaking Spurs. With me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham on what has been a pretty disappointing week in terms of results anyway. Some performances have actually been okay from some players, which we'll talk about. So today we have to talk about, obviously, the game against Wolves, and I will touch on a bit about Sheffield United. Now, the reason why I didn't talk about that one after the game is because I was waiting to see what the reaction was after that disappointment in the FA Cup. I am a firm believer that you should put stronger lineups out, especially at that stage of the competition. If we'd have got through, we now know that we'd have been facing another championship club, albeit another championship club that is pushing to be a part of the Premier League next season in Blackburn, and it would have been at home. So that just goes to tell you all of that. I have a feeling a lot of it comes down to finances of what these cups get. So we will talk about that a little bit as well. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to support the video with a like if you enjoyed it, despite the negative things we've got to talk about. And as always, please post your comments below. It helps me to get an idea of what everyone wants to talk about, how as a fan base we're actually feeling, so the interaction is good. Now, there were some changes from the cup game. There were also some surprise inclusions. Longley came into centre-back to cover for Dyer. I haven't been overly impressed every time Longley has come into the centre of the back three. He's been okay when he's played on the left side of that back three to deputise for Ben Davies. I was actually shocked to see Perisic keep his place. Skippy obviously came in for Sarr. Richarlison, after a very poor display against Sheffield United, took his place on the bench. Harry Kane also came back into the starting lineup with Lucas Moura dropping to the bench, and then Pedro Porro was on the pitch as well. I was a little bit confused by this. I mean, he actually played okay, to be fair, but I just thought that Emerson Royale was going to come back into the team. But as I understand, for the Sheffield United game, he'd actually picked up a slight knock on his knee, which is why he didn't start that game. Then I'm wondering if they're just giving him a bit more time to recover, seeing as Porro's been here for a little bit longer now and probably bedded in a little bit better and showed some good things in training this week. So that meant the starting lineup for this game was Forster in goal, Romero, Longley and Davies as your three at the back. Oliver, Skip and Højbjerg making up the middle two, with Perisic and Porro as your wing backs, and then a front three of Kulusevski, Son and Harry Kane through the middle. So let's talk about what happened in that game, shall we? We started off quite well, dominating play, which doesn't happen too much in the first half for Tottenham. So we started really brightly, we were on the front foot, but however, I think that was down to just some shakiness from Wolves. They were a bit all over the place. Their formation clearly wasn't working because Lopetegui then changed it at half-time to counteract what we were doing. Also, the passing from both teams was pretty poor in that first half. There was loose balls everywhere. That part of the reason we were picking up a lot of loose balls was because the passing was so poor from Wolves. And ours wasn't particularly great either. We were almost rushing things, but I did appreciate the fact that we were trying and we were attacking and making the effort. We were closing down. So they were all positive things. So for the first half, pretty good, to be honest. And what Stellini had to say about the first half performance is, I think the performance was good, particularly in the first half when we controlled the game in every aspect. We had some chances to score. We were not so hasty in the way to score. When you have a chance like this, you have to kill the game. The game was under control, but in the second half, we struggled a bit after the start. But after 10 minutes, we adapted to the situation and we controlled the game. I mean, I'm not so sure we actually did. I think that's a load of rubbish. We didn't adapt well enough after 10 minutes, and I don't think we really controlled the game as such. It was more balanced. He said we had another chance with Sonny that hit the bar, and that wasn't down to anything Sonny did being amazing. It was actually deflected onto the bar. After that, I think they had some intensity in the game, winning some offensive duels, and that created a situation where we struggled a bit and the game changed, but they found a way to score and we didn't. This is the history of the game. Now, essentially what happened, Lopetegui realised that they were getting overrun in the first half. He changed it to kind of match us up formation-wise. He brought on Adama Traore, who... Well, it's really annoying because part of the reason why we've ended up not signing him is obviously he went to Barcelona that time. Then he didn't do too well there, and I think that stopped us from coming back in for him, especially when we have to pay a fee. I think if we were to take him on a free and he was available for a free, we would have taken him. And it just so happens that he decided to have a decent game against us, to the point where many Wolves fans are probably wondering why he didn't start. He was strong, he was aggressive, he controlled the game, his passing was actually fairly decent, held up the ball well, obviously has that good speed down the wing. And then he comes in with a decent finish that sees us lose the game 1-0. Strange finish, both feet off the floor, very unorthodox, but nonetheless it went in. Probably if he hit that 10 times, it would only go in once out of the 10. Stellini was actually asked about his substitution. So his first substitution didn't actually come until the 77th minute. And late substitutions they're becoming more of a common theme. And it's not just with Conte. There's a lot of managers that have done this in the past. It was one of my few criticisms of Harry Redknapp when he was in charge. He loved to make a substitution a bit too late. Jose Mourinho was probably the only manager in recent times we've had that was willing to make substitutions early to affect the game on a consistent basis. So he was asked, Wolves look fresher in the second half. Were you not tempted to match them with some earlier substitutions? He said, no. The team needed only 5 minutes to adapt, which is strange because in his previous comment, he said 10 minutes. He said, we were playing well on the pace and we controlled the game. There wasn't reason for change. After we changed, because there was a reason to change because we needed more energy and to interrupt their pace in the game. But only one detail changed the story of the game, and that's obviously the goal. He was then asked after the Leicester game, the mentality of the players was questioned. Is that still the case? He said, well, today we showed a great mentality because we came here in a situation against a team that is similar to Leicester, a great team with a good squad, and we controlled the game for 60 minutes. We play different if you compare the game in Leicester to the game today. I think the mentality of the game... when you start with that mentality of the game, you have to kill the game. This is a lesson we learned today. So I suppose in one sense we can be happy that the players actually put some effort in the first half, but then we have to be disappointed because in the second half it kind of went to pot. Now, as much as it is blame of the players on the pitch, I will say I do blame the poor in-game management. I do think we needed to change something. A change of formation probably would have been a good idea. Defensively, I'd have gone to a back four. I'd have made things stronger. So even though Porro was having a decent-ish game, I'd have taken him off. I mean, he had a decent free kick in the first half that hit the bar. That if on target, I think was just creeping in. There was enough of a gap between Sarr's hands and the woodwork at the time it was struck. So, he had an okay game. He showed glimpses that he could be a decent player for Spurs. But I'd have sacrificed him to go to a back four, bringing in the more robust Emerson Royale. I'd have put an extra man into midfield that I feel like would have helped us. Because once they went to a back three and they started dominating, we knew in this game we weren't going to have loads and loads of possession throughout the whole game anyway. Wolves are a bit of a tricky opponent for us. We've lost 3 of the last 14 going into the game against them. They've got a decent midfield, so we knew it was going to be difficult. They're a possession-based team in the style that they play. And I just feel like we needed to do something to change it. So I would have brought in, I'd gone to the back four. I then would have, and this isn't from the beginning of the game because we didn't know this was going to happen. I'd have then in midfield, I'd have brought on Sarr and had him as the man pushed a little bit further up. Or there is a slight call that you could have brought Harry Kane back into the number 10 role and put Richarlison or Danjuma on. The strange thing with the substitutions in the end is that Lucas Moura came on instead of the £60 million Richarlison or Danjuma coming on earlier. So, yeah. He was asked about Porro's performance and he said he played a good game like all the team. They didn't. We know Pedro Porro is this type of player. We need to help him to adapt himself to a new league, but today was important for us. The only thing is be ready, nasty and aggressive in the way you have to kill the game. Conte should actually be back today. He is scheduled to return. So I don't know how much involvement he's going to have in the training. Is he going to take a slower pace than he did last time? We shall see. So let's talk about the individual players against Wolves. So in goal, Fraser Forster. He actually showed some nice feet to say. He had a decent game. To be fair, he was probably our best player on the day. He showed some nice feet to send Neves the wrong way in the Spurs box early on. He made a good flying save to push out Jimenez's header not long into the second half. He then made another fine scrambling save to stop Neves' effort from distance and tipped over a strike from the same man soon after. He then saved from Jimenez, perhaps the only complaint being that he pushed it out too centrally, only for Traore to guide the loose ball home. Now, that is my only criticism of Fraser Forster in this game. It's when he does make these saves. He made a couple where he actually pushed it back quite centrally. So that would be my only criticism, just getting to the ball with his fists or palms at the right angle to push it away from goal rather than back into the danger area. But apart from that, he had a pretty decent game. Onto the centre-backs, Romero, some good aggressive tackling in there. He was one of the better defenders on the day, but ultimately, that's about it. Longley, playing through the centre, he looked in control in the first half, but he was way less comfortable in the second. He almost handed them a goal as well, with a loose pass that was intercepted, and then he was too slow in getting back to stop Cunha's shot. So he was actually the worst of the back three on the day. Ben Davies, solid enough down the left, but he struggled, as most did, with Traore's strength when he came on. Not really going to blame Ben Davies for that, because when Traore is on a good day, which, you know, there's not as many as there should be for a player of his pace and strength. When he's on a good day, he's hard for anyone to deal with in the world. There's a reason Barcelona decided to take him on loan. His consistency is just what stopped it from working. Then Porro, bright start down the right from him. One wayward shot. Another low cross after a good run down the flank. He showed he can obviously take a decent free kick with the powerful curling effort that hit the crossbar. He had a looping deflective strike saved well by Sarr in the second half. So it was a better showing from him after, you know, that abysmal debut that he had, and then obviously being stuck in a squad that performed poorly in the cup. On the other side to him, even Perisic, it was another day for him that wasn't particularly great, and unfortunately for him, he's going for a bit of a sticky patch. He saw a header saved by Sarr late in the first half. That was about as good as it got for him. He was lacking quality with his deliveries to others throughout, which is, you know, it's one of his strong points. So I don't know what's happened there at all. Moving into the middle, Højbjerg, he started pretty well, but he actually seemed to run out of steam as the game wore on against Wolves' fresher legs, and that's not a criticism of Højbjerg whatsoever. He plays a lot of football for us. It's very rare that he's out of the side. It's only ever suspension, injury, or if he's ridiculously tired. This guy is an animal, plays a lot of football, and I think had Bentancur been fit, there's a possibility we could have seen Højbjerg go off and get some well-needed rest in this game. His partner, Skippy, it was another decent showing from the young midfielder, although he also got overrun, like Højbjerg, by the Wolves' fresh legs in the second half. And, you know, when they changed their formation and they had the energy about, when you've only got two guys in there, one of them who's running out of steam, it just makes it very difficult to play on your own energy-wise. Onto the front three, Kulusevski forced Sarr into a flying save in the 20th minute. But other than the odd run and decent touch, the Swede struggled to find a way through. And it's been a pretty inconsistent season for him, hasn't it? He's kind of playing within himself at the moment. Harry Kane through the middle. He was involved in plenty. He started a couple of moves that ended with Spurs' chances in the first half before putting Son through for a big opportunity early in the second. Had a couple of shots deflected wide in the second half, but it wasn't a vintage Kane performance by any stretch of the imagination. You know, and how much can you do on your own, really? Then Sonny. Oh, Sonny. It just doesn't get better for him, does it? Kept his place after the cup game. Cut inside and hit an early shot that Sarr held. He then curled in a deep free kick, which Perisic headed at goal. He then saw his effort early in the second half deflected onto the crossbar. A little more like the old Sonny at times, but just missing that finishing touch, which unfortunately is the part that we need. I would actually rather he had a poorish game and scored a couple of goals in these situations when, we're getting overrun. Then on to the subs. Lucas Moura came on, replaced Kulusevski, but, other than the ball that he put through to Kane, he offered very little. Emerson Royale came on, didn't really add any attacking threat when he replaced Porro. And then Richarlison came on, I think it was the 81st minute or something, came on for Davies, but made little impact. How much impact can you make with 9 minutes of a game to go? Frustrating one, really, isn't it? Really frustrating, because had we have had a bit more in-game management, probably could have gone on to kill the game. I feel like once Wolves came out for the second half and we'd seen that they'd made those changes and they were starting to get back into the game, that was the time to strike, change and tweak our game a little bit, put our fresher legs on earlier and really go at them and force them back. They're not in a good moment in terms of league position, but Lopetegui is a very good manager. I'll give him that. Since he's been at Wolves, I watch a lot of football now since taking over this channel, and I have to say I do like him as a manager. It's just a shame they haven't had him for longer. I don't think they'd be in the situation that they're in. They don't score too many goals, and then injuries got worse for them during the game. Diego Costa obviously going off in the first half, and what has happened to him? Age is not treating Diego Costa very well. He's not the same nasty player that he was. I mean, he was never overly rapid or anything, but that nastiness got him through the game, and I actually think he's quite soft now. He got put to the floor a couple of times by Spurs players. The injury itself was when he went up for a ball and landed awkwardly, and his knee kind of hyperextended. It was horrible to watch a replay of, but he is very much a different player than he was. So now let's talk about the cup game. Hey. The game against Sheffield United, and this is why you shouldn't make changes in these games. I feel like hindsight's a great thing. If we'd have gone on to win the Wolves game, they could have come out and said we were justified, and that's only if we win the Wolves game comfortably. Like scraping a 1-0 win wouldn't have been a good enough reason to make these changes. And this is where you start to realise financially, these are the reasons why we're making these changes. We'll talk a little bit about the team and how they played against Sheffield United. And it was pretty poor all round. Forster didn't really have much to do other than some catches from corners and free kicks. But he was beaten low down by Ndaye's shot, which wrong-footed him. Rightly or wrongly, it depends on what Forster could see at the time. Sanchez had he had a bit of a howler, didn't he? It's annoying because he's got all the capabilities of being a great defender. For the majority of games, he actually looks okay. Like his ability to header, to block, to chase people, to tackle is normally pretty good. He just has this one moment or two moments in every game, it seems to be now, that makes him look like a wobbly League One defender. But it's all in there. I don't get what it is. Is it the concentration? Is it the lack of consistent game time? Because when he's been in the Spurs defence consistently for a long period of time, he's been okay. But unfortunately, he's never been able to replicate the form that we saw from him in his very first season, where he actually played a decent role in our Champions League squad. Eric Dyer in that game made some forays forward, ended the game on the right of the back three, but he couldn't influence proceedings. And he turned his back on the shot that they scored from. Davies was actually pretty decent in that game in the back five. He did much of what we needed him to on the left, as he always does, pretty sturdy. Porro in that game, some early nervy moments, steadily improved, adjusted to the swirling wind and rain there was. The conditions weren't the best. Could have done better with Højbjerg's diagonal ball that he sent in, made a couple of decent runs, had a left-footed shot of his over the bar, But he was really weak for the goal that they scored. He let Ndiaye ease past him way too easy. Perisic, on the other side, took a massive hit to his shin from a challenge from Baldock, but he managed to shake it off. Got down the left a few times, but again, delivery wasn't good. Pap Matassar, he was composed most of the time. Apart from a very late sliding challenge on Doyle, that got him a yellow card. He was replaced by Skip with 15 minutes to go. Højbjerg didn't have the best of games that time. He actually nearly gifted them a goal late in the first half with a header back to Forster, falling way short. But fortunately, Koulibaly actually fired wide. Played some decent balls about, and it was another that in the lead up to the goal didn't try to tackle Ndiaye as he ran through. Lucas Moura, it was actually a bright start from him, as it normally is, but it was very familiar. Lots of wobbly running into players after going past the first two, some poor passing. But yeah, goes down blind alleys, doesn't he? Richarlison, I felt sorry for him. He started centrally. Should have done better with a chance set up by Sanchez midway through the first half. Sent another effort wildly off target in the second half. It was terrible. It was so wide, snatched at it when he actually should have played the ball slightly out to the right, got himself back in the middle, hopefully for a tap in. But, you know, he's just itching for a goal. And I think he knows the fans are getting on his back on social media, which isn't helping. We do need to support the players a little bit. He was lacking service in that game. But not a great day at the office for him. And then Sonny, plenty of runs, but with nothing at the end of it. He just couldn't influence the game, which is poor from one of our senior players. Harry Kane came off the bench, barely touched the ball other than a late, weak header. Kulusevski came on down the right as a sub, worked hard as he always does, eventually ended up as a wing back, but to no avail as he was left standing for Sheffield United's goal. And then Ollie Skip brought some bite into the midfield for the final 15 minutes and some good forward passing, but to no avail. And then Danjuma came on very late, entered the game, but couldn't make any impact. Now, this would have been a good game for Danjuma to start. I was very shocked when I saw that he wasn't starting with so many changes. If you're going to make changes, then make it worth it. I think Sonny should have stayed on the bench, let Richarlison play on the left, Danjuma, or Moura through the middle, then over Danjuma or Moura from the right. That's the way I would have gone if we're making changes, but I wouldn't have made the changes whatsoever. I was really disappointed to see that many changes in that game. Sheffield United are no mugs. Their ground is a difficult one to play at. And they are probably going to be a Premier League team next season. So why did we take it so lightly? And this is what we're going to talk about now. It's the money side of the game. So it's actually disgusting when you look at it and the reasons why I think we went with a weaker lineup. And it's purely to try and secure our league position. So, the FA Cup, you earn 2 million for winning. £2 million, that's nothing in football, you know. And then along the way, your journey, I think you can earn like another £500,000. So say you win the competition, you've earned yourself £2.5 million. If we talk about the Champions League money, here we go. You can see exactly why teams are willing to make this sacrifice. Now, as fans, we don't understand it. We want to see a trophy. There are a lot of Spurs fans out there that if I said to you now, would you take 5th place and have to play Europa League football for a season, but win the FA Cup? I think a high percentage would say yes. Now, there's a reason why Spurs, as a business, say no. So, you get, for reaching the group stage, €15.64 million. Group stage draws earn you 930,000 euros. A group stage win, €2.8 million. So that in itself, I think that equates to like 2.3 million pounds. And that in itself already is nearly the same money that you get for winning the FA Cup. You know, and this is where it's all wrong in the game. There's too much money in other areas that refocuses teams' commitments. The round of 16, if you reach that, you get a bonus payment of 9.6 million euros. Quarter-finalists, 10.6 million euros. Semi-finalists, 12.5 million euros. The runner-up of the competition gets 15.5 million euros, and you win the competition and you get an extra 20 million euros. But that's not all. There is other Champions League prize money to be had, and that's not even including the TV money that you get. So with 55% of the total prize purse, while 55% of the total prize purse is distributed among the clubs as a reward for their results in the competition, as outlined above, the rest of the 45% of the pool is split across the 32 group stage participants in two ways. There's a coefficient payout, 30% of the total, which is roughly 600.6 million euros. That's paid out to all 32 clubs in the Champions League group stage based on a coefficient algorithm that ranks their European performance over a 10-year period. So teams are ranked according to this algorithm from 1 to 32, with bonus points given for hoisting European trophies. Then the money is paid out in shares according to the team's rank. So the lowest ranked team earns a share of 1.137 million euros, while the top ranked teams earns 32 shares or 36.68 million euros. Then you get the broadcast market payout, which is 15% of the total. So an additional 300.3 million of that purse is made available as part of the broadcast revenue once all the broadcast deals are finalised around the continent. So the national federation for each country represented in the UEFA Champions League, they're provided with a share of this money based on the proportional value of each TV market. So each national federation then distributes that money to the participating Champions League clubs based on. So 50% of the allocation to a national federation will be divided among the participating Champions League clubs from that nation based on fixed percentages determined by UEFA. The other 50% is paid out in proportion to the number of matches played by each club in that competition. So the further you go, the more you earn. I mean, it's mega money we're talking about here. So you can understand why an owner like Daniel Levy, who is very money focused, that wants to see the club sustain itself financially, would want the club to prioritise the Champions League over that. I mean, even finishing in the top four, that earns more money than winning the FA Cup. And the League Cup, it's even less. I'm not even sure it's a full million that you earn for winning that. It might be something like 900 grand, and then it's over $1 million once you add in TV rights and going from the beginning to the end. So you can see, it's clear that there is method behind the madness of why clubs would prioritise a league finish over that to try and get into the Champions League or even the Europa League. The Europa League winner will earn about 15 million euros in performance-based prize money in the knockout stage. That's just in the knockout. So even the Europa League itself is more of an incentive than the FA Cup. Plus an additional possible 4.88 million in the potential group stage earnings for a perfect 6-match showing. Meanwhile, the Europa Conference League winner, so this is the new cup that we didn't enjoy being in, we were, insulted by it, that we actually went out of. The winner of that will earn about 8.9 million euros in performance-based prize money in the knockout stage, plus an additional possible 3.65 million in the potential group stage earnings for a perfect 6. So that is all just based on the knockout stages. That doesn't actually equate for any of the extra money that you're going to get with your TV broadcasting and stuff. So look, that is mental. I understand why they're prioritising it. However, I think trophies gives you a winning mentality. It takes you on to another level. So, in my eyes, I still think, and as I said at the beginning, this is why I didn't talk about the Sheffield United game until now, because I wanted to see the reaction. we still didn't win in the Premier League. We're only in the top 4 still because teams around us are dropping points. Newcastle obviously lost their game against Manchester City. I mean, it was at their place. It was going to be a difficult game. I think the best they could have hoped for against Man City would have been a draw. So they lost that game, which means we keep, luckily, the same cushion we had leading into the game. However, if we'd have won that game, we'd have had a bigger barrier. It would have been 7 points. That eliminates the 2 games in hand that they had. It would have kept us safe with a 1 point above them. It also means that Liverpool, depending on what they do today, can creep back on us. Brighton are no mugs, by the way. They went to West Ham. They didn't go to West Ham. West Ham went to them. They completely tore West Ham apart. West Ham actually haven't won against Brighton in the Premier League. But it's these teams around us. Brighton are no mugs. They've got a very good manager. Tactically, he's very astute. They have a great recruitment system in place. Big players can go from them and it doesn't affect anything. They're very consistent. They have a brand of football that is attractive. And that's now turning into... And, you've got to give credit to Graham Potter. He put all that in place. They're having a great season. They are no mugs. There's no reason why they can't finish in the top 4, especially with the other teams around them not being consistent. And why do we always have to do it the difficult way? For me, we knew before we played our game that Newcastle had dropped points. The players would have known that. And yet we still couldn't get ourselves further enough up for the game to be clinical against Wolves, a team struggling further down the league. I'm hoping that Conte being back will give the club a boost, the players a boost. I am going to do a video on managers, where I think we should go, what I think we did wrong under Pochettino, how things could have been helped, and why we're further behind now than where we should be. So that'll be coming maybe tomorrow. I might do that tomorrow evening or Tuesday. So we'll see. Keep an eye out for that one. Thank you for sticking around. I know it's not positive chat that we've been talking about, but I hope you enjoyed the information that I could give you and a little bit of the breakdown. Oh, and just one last figure, actually. So last season, champions Real Madrid in the Champions League, they collected 83.2 million euros. And then they got an extra 4.5 million euros for winning the UEFA Super Cup in August 2022. That just goes to show you the money that there is in elite level football. But anyway, I have been Kieran from Speaking Spurs. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. Until next time, come on you Spurs.